Part 38. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 371. Chapter 371. Be careful, it's definitely someone who comes with bad intentions. During this period, Bailey Fengming has been accompanying the emperor and busy with matters related to the Genii kingdom. Queen Zhengzi didn't want to distract him, so she simply pretended to be sick and came out of the palace privately. Fan Qinjiao had already begun to guess something, and he finally had the answer in his heart. No matter which Yuning is accompanying the emperor now, one thing is undeniable, she is the one who pleases the imperial concubine. Queen Zhen 11's face turned cold. I didn't expect that they couldn't bribe Yuning, so they came up with another fake one. In order to cause trouble for me, concubine Yu was really serious. As expected, he was the master of the harem. Fan Qinjiao only knew a little bit, and Queen Zhen 11 understood everything. It's just that Fan Qinjiao never revealed Yuning's true identity. The queen is always in danger in the palace. She cannot tell the queen about this matter before she has any evidence to be absolutely certain whether Yuning is that person. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, the queen will not know what kind of trap she will fall into. Since Yuning is Yu Guifei's lover, this proposal to go to the palace for winter hunting may also be Yu Guifei's intention. Queen Zhen 11 already knew in her heart that if she went to Yu Palace this time, she might be coming from a bad person. Fan Qinjiao thought for a while and said, even if the emperor loves the current Yuning, it is just a promise. This is enough to show that the emperor has not really been obsessed with Yuning. If this is the case, Fan Qinjiao looked at the queen and said, I'm afraid that the emperor will agree to Yuning's proposal, because he must have something hidden. Queen Zhen 11 thought for a moment, I will definitely send people to investigate this matter carefully, but no matter what the reason is, I am afraid that the emperor has already decided to go to the palace for winter hunting. The emperor said that this is a family banquet. I'm afraid even you will have to go with me, so remember to be extremely careful. Empress Zhen 11 no longer has any conscientious hope in Yu Palace. Even the innocent Yuning beside her was plotted to death. How could such people expect that they would let go of Xiao Qinjiao, who was her future daughter-in-law? Queen, don't worry, I will be extremely careful. Queen Zhen 11 looked at the obedient, sensible, mature, and steady person in front of her, and sighed softly, I have also heard about the recent rumors in the main city. In order to stabilize the emperor, Fengming must do something. It's pretty cool, but don't worry, I won't let you suffer in vain. Fan Qinjiao smiled and said, with the queen's love and affection, I will not feel aggrieved. Look at that little mouth, it's really eloquent. No wonder he trapped his cold son. Seeing that everything that needed to be said had been said, Queen Zhen 11 got up and left through the back door. After all, you are leaving the palace privately, so it would be bad if you caused trouble. As Queen Zhen 11 left, 2 hours later, people from the palace knocked on the door of the western suburbs mansion. Unsurprisingly, the emperor has decided to go to the palace for winter hunting to celebrate the new year. Not only Fan Qinjiao, who is the future prince's concubine, but also the other princes and concubines are also among those invited. Just before everyone accompanied the emperor to the palace to celebrate the new year, the weddings of the princes had to be held first. Otherwise, there would be so many unmarried daughters-in-law hanging out with the princes, which would be embarrassing and not nice to hear. Since the weddings of the princes of the right age are all on the same day, the weddings of each prince are also closely connected, and they are almost all held within a month. Just like this, all the princes and concubines decided on a date and planned to have a get-together in advance. After all, we are both sisters-in-law from now on, so we hope to have a good relationship. Of course, as the latest crown princess Fan Qinjiao, she also received the message. Early in the morning, Nanny Su quickly brought over the clothes she had prepared. Fan Qinjiao, who was teaching Mu Yan how to prepare the new hair oil, was not in a hurry and asked Aunt Su to wait aside while he continued to teach Mu Yan attentively. Mu Yan is now the head of Kingnanzai, so he must learn to be careful in everything. It's just that the preparation of each new product of Kingnanzai is extremely cumbersome and complicated. Even if Mu Yan learns it quickly enough, it will already be 3 hours later. Mammy Su, who finally let the fourth lady go, hurriedly came over to change her daughter's clothes. Fan Kinjao waved his hand, "No need, it's just fine." At this gathering of the princes and concubines, she knew no one except Han Jingchen, the sixth prince's concubine. "I had no intention of being hypocritical, and I was wasting my time just to deal with those people." Su Yan was helpless, but just saw that his lady was iron-hearted and uniform, and could only let the driver set up a carriage and personally sent his lady to get on the carriage. The banquet happened to be held at the residence of the sixth prince's concubine, Han Jingchen. When Fan Kinjao arrived, the room was very lively. All the princes and concubines who were accused of being married were present. It could be said that they were all gathered together. Han Jingchen saw Fan Kinjao entering the door, and hurriedly walked over and took her hand. "You are finally here, so I can wait." Fan Kinjao smiled and said, "Something in the house delayed me." Before Han Jingchen could continue to speak, Pan Yulo stood up and said, "The crown princess is different from us. We are all married. We are so busy with our time, but others are so busy." Everyone knows that Pan Yulo was intercepted by Fan Kinjao and Princess Hu. Furthermore, besides the prince, the third prince is the most valued prince by the emperor. Even if there is no overt conflict, there is no way he is not fighting secretly behind the scenes. Now that Pan Yulo has become the third prince's concubine, she has openly drawn a clear line between herself and the prince's concubine Fan Kinjao. The other two princes and concubines looked a little embarrassed when they heard this. Even though they were jealous of Fan Kinjao in their hearts, she was the princess who would crush them in the future. Han Jingchen quickly smoothed things over and said, "I heard that after the wedding, we will go to the palace with the emperor to celebrate the new year. To be honest, this is my first time going out to celebrate the new year." The other two princes and concubines were also deeply touched and hurriedly changed the topic. While everyone was chatting, Han Jingchen quickly pulled Fan Kinjao to sit down and whispered, "Don't take it to your heart, she is just jealous of you." Fan Kinjao smiled and nodded. With a person like this who can't even hide his temper, even quarreling is a waste of time. What she cared about was Pan Yulo's attitude. This was not the first time that Pan Yulo had dealt with her, and she knew that she was not a soft persimmon. Even if Pan Yulo really disliked her, she would never be stupid enough to provoke her. Fan Kinjao narrowed his eyes slightly, and found something more interesting. Obviously she was in Han Mansion, but Pan Yulo was full of aura. Not only did she take the initiative to greet the other princes and concubines present, but she also directly ordered the servants around to bring tea and water. What is even more surprising is that Han Jingchen, who has always had a bad temper, actually acquiesced to Pan Yulo's declaration of troops to seize the throne. After greeting Pan Yulo around, he sat down and then looked at Yan Hanbei beside him with some reluctance and said, "Why didn't you speak for me just now?" Yan Hanbei secretly looked in Fan Kinjao's direction, with too many unclear things flashing in his tangled eyes. Yan Hanbei has been so depressed since he came back from the palace last time. When Pan Yulo saw that Yan Hanbei was silent again, she reminded him, "If you don't fight now, what will you do in the future? Don't forget that the eldest prince is suffering from a hidden disease. If you don't toughen up, won't you?" He was bullied to death by Fan Kinjao, who was the crown princess. She was really stupid at the beginning. How come she didn't realize that Fan Kinjao was so mean, and she stupidly tried to persuade him in the middle? Yan Hanbei was about to say something when he suddenly saw his maid standing at the door. Yan Hanbei stood up and walked outside. The maid didn't say anything, but just handed over a note. He opened it quietly with his back to everyone, and the black and white words on the paper were like silver needles piercing Yan Hanbei's eyes and heart. At the main hall, a pretty girl suddenly came in. Fan Kinjao raised his eyes and saw the girl's slender waist and delicate features. As soon as the girl entered the door, she walked towards Pan Yulu and called out sweetly, "Sister." After finishing her words, she looked at Han Jingchen again and called out again, "Cousin." Such an unexpected title really surprised Fan Kinjao. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 372. Chapter 372. I'm really disgusted. Han Jingchen pulled Fan Kinjao to his feet and introduced her carefully, "This is Yu Jing's cousin from my aunt's house." Mrs. Han's biological sister married Pan Yulu's father back then, and gave birth to Pan Yulu after entering the house. Unfortunately, Mrs. Han's sister was very beautiful and had a bad life, and she passed away a few years after giving birth to Pan Yulu. Later on, Pan Yulu's father married another Mrs. Pan and gave birth to the current Pan Yujing. Mrs. Han has a deep love for her sisters and has visited and taken care of Pan Yulu over the years. It's just that Han Jingchen has always disliked Pan Yulu's temperament, so she has never been close to Pan Yulu. Fan Kinjao has always known that Han Jingchen and Pan Yulu were connected, but he did not expect that there was such a connection. Pan Yujing looked at Fan Kinjao curiously, and after a while she asked softly, "Cousin Jingchen, this is..." Without waiting for Han Jingchen's introduction, Pan Yulu took the initiative to bring Pan Yujing over. This person is an extraordinary person. Not only is he the princess given by the emperor, but he is also the future crown princess. Pan Yujing didn't seem to hear the sarcasm in these words. She just looked at Fan Kinjao enviously and said, "So this is Sister Kinjao. She is really a famous name that I have admired for a long time." They both grew up in Pan's house, and Pan Yulu had a temperament that couldn't hide things. Look at Pan Yujing, who is also a sister. She is beautiful, sweet, generous, and decent. It is obvious that she cannot be underestimated. Since Fan Kinjao was in the Han mansion, he would not lose Han Jingchen's face, so he greeted her with a smile. The second Miss Pan's words are serious. Pan Yujing didn't notice Fan Kinjao's alienation, and took the initiative to come over and hold her arm, smiling sweetly, "I just heard that cousin Jingchen has a lot of koi in her back garden. If it gets cold in a few days, I'm afraid I won't be able to see it. I wonder if cousin Jingchen will allow me to feast my eyes on it." The words were spoken to Han Jingchen, but it was Fan Kinjao's arm that she held. Even if Han Jingchen had to agree in order not to lose face to Fan Kinjao, not to mention it was not a big deal, in that case, "Could you please bother all the sisters and go for a walk in the back garden together?" During this period of time, the princes and concubines were getting tired of staying at home because they were getting ready for marriage. Now that they heard Han Jingchen's proposal, they all stood up in great surprise. The back garden of the Han mansion is not far from the front hall. You can see it from a distance by going around several verandas. Pan Yujing's mouth was not idle along the way, and she talked endlessly. She is young and very good at making people happy. The other two princes and concubines were so coaxed that their eyes closed with laughter. Fan Kinjao deliberately slowed down his steps to test, and sure enough, Pan Yujing's hand that had been entangled in his arm naturally let go. Looking at Han Jingchen, who had always been uncomfortable but trying to maintain her dignity, and at Pan Yujing, who was chatting and laughing with the other two princes and concubines, Fan Kinjao felt regretful in his heart. Today is a gathering of the princes and concubines, but Pan Yujing just stepped in. Not only is she dressed more beautifully and delicately than Han Jingchen, but she also attracts everyone's attention all the time. This is like a sesame seed on tofu. Things that are obvious. Han Jingchen knew in her heart that a person as exquisite and clear as Fan Kinjao would have noticed Niduan a long time ago. So while everyone was walking into the pavilion to watch the koi, he walked up to Fan Kinjao and smiled, What happened today is a joke to you. Fan Kinjao frowned slightly. When was it decided? Han Jingchen turned around and looked into the distance, and took a deep breath. It's just for these few days. Fan Kinjao's brows tightened. That's how you admit it? Han Jingchen curled her lips bitterly. What else can I do if I don't recognize you? When her aunt was still alive, she loved her very much. Although she doesn't like the Pan family, she can't really hinder her mother's decision. Fan Kinjao looked at Han Jingchen's forced smile and finally understood why she was so free and easy when she met Han Jingchen. A beautiful girl from a famous family like Han Jingchen is not only responsible for the prosperity of her family, but also the future of her family. To put it bluntly, she acted suspiciously and unscrupulously as her wayward young lady. But once she gets married, she has to stand on the overall situation and consider the interests of the family. Fan Kinjao is unfamiliar with Han Jingchen like this. Han Jingchen smiled and said, my aunt came to discuss this matter with my mother. Anyway, the sixth prince will also have concubines in the future. Since he wants to take in other people, it would be better to have someone with some connections. Fan Kinjao just started to feel sick. She was too lazy to think about what the Pan family had in mind, but it was obvious what Bailey Rongs had in mind. Now Pan Yulu is about to become the third prince's concubine. At this time, she throws her sister to the sixth prince's mansion to become a concubine. Regardless of whether Pan Yujing can finally help the Pan family who has boarded the third prince's ship to win over the sixth prince, but Han, however, because of Pan Yujing's identity, Jia had to stand behind the third prince. Bailey Rongs is really good at making calculations. Look at the people around you who are hanging out with Pan Yujing. Who is not here to see a joke? The prince's concubine hasn't even gotten married yet, but someone is coming to fight for her. The noisy voices in the distance suddenly gathered towards Fan Kinjao and Han Jingchen. Pan Yujing, who ran over first, threw herself into Han Jingchen's arms with a smile on her face. Cousin Jingchen. Just when Pan Yujing was about to touch Han Jingchen, she suddenly turned her body around. Almost instantly, Han Jingchen, who was tackled by Pan Yujing, also fell into the lake with Pan Yujing. Things happened so suddenly that even the other two princes and concubines present did not notice it. But there was a hand that tightly grasped Han Jingchen's arm. Han Jingchen looked up along her arm in shock, and saw Fan Kinjao's dark eyes. Pan Yujing didn't expect that Han Jingchen would pull her back to the original position, and she was stunned. Soon, without giving up, she hugged Han Jingchen's neck tightly and fell towards the lake again. Han Jingchen had no time to think about what Pan Yujing wanted to do, and instinctively reached out again to hug Pan Yujing's body tightly. As a result, before she could touch Pan Yujing, Fan Kinjao kicked Pan Yujing in the stomach. Han Jingchen. I was really shocked. Boom. The huge sound of falling into the lake finally attracted the attention of the other two princes and concubines. Pan Yulu, who had already seen everything, pretended to be panicked and shouted, "Someone is coming. Save people quickly." Hearing the sound, the boys around him jumped into the lake to save the person. At the same time, it was Pan Rentung and MRS Pan who were guests in the front hall, and Master Han and MRS Han from China Unicom also rushed over following the sound. When she saw Pan Yujing, who was soaked and weak, MRS Pan rushed over in one stride. MRS Pan hugged her wet daughter and turned to look at Pan Yulu. What on earth is going on? Pan Yulu pretended to be innocent and shook her head, but what she said was very intriguing. There were so many people just now, and I don't know what happened. I just saw that Yujing went to find cousin Jingchen before she fell into the water. The other two princes and concubines had no objections when they heard this. After all, when Pan Yujing rushed toward Han Jingchen, they all noticed it. It's just that they didn't see clearly what happened next. MRS Pan seemed to understand something and turned to look at Han Jingchen. Her sharp voice went straight to the sky. Our daughter has always been well behaved and sensible, and she trusted you, Jing Chen. But this is how you treat my daughter? Jing Chen, you are really cruel. How can you be so cruel? Of course Han Jingchen knew that it was Fan Qinjiao who kicked Pan Yujing into the lake, but she would not say this even if she died. Seeing that her daughter was silent, Mrs. Han thought that her daughter was really resentful of Pan Yujing's decision to become the sixth prince's concubine, so she quickly came forward to persuade her, it's important to change Yujing's clothes first. As for other things, it's not too late for us to talk about it later. Mrs. Pan, however, sat still and said, say what you say, if the Han family doesn't give us an explanation for what happened today, we will take the matter to Fengtian Mansion. Anyone who understands can hear that the so-called explanation is just to force the Han family to agree to let Pan Yujing go to the sixth prince's mansion as a dowry. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 373. Chapter 373. It turns out that this is still possible. Fan Qinjiao looked at Mrs. Pan's pressing steps, and only regretted that the kick just now was too gentle. The Han family agreed to stuff Pan Yujing into the sixth prince's house, which was enough to make her feel sick to her stomach. Unexpectedly, she really overestimated the shamelessness of the Pan family. They actually wanted to use the frame-up to coerce Han Jingchen to take Pan Yujing away with her on the wedding day. Otherwise, they would report her to the official and slander Han Jingchen's reputation so that Han Jingchen could not even be the sixth prince's concubine. Han Jingchen today has not yet fallen into the lake together as they wished, they are so aggressive. What if Han Jingchen really fell into the water with Pan Yujing? By then, the Pan family will surely insist that it was Han Jingchen who pushed Pan Yujing into the lake. Fortunately, the two elders of the Han family are not completely irrational, and this matter is not without hope. Fan Qinjiao gradually calmed down as he had the rules in mind. Seeing that Mrs. Han was silent, Mrs. Pan quickly looked at Pan Rentung who was aside. Pan Rentung looked at his daughter's embarrassed appearance, and his face didn't look good. Thinking again about what the third prince said before coming, he gritted his teeth and said, I must ask the Han mansion to explain this matter. Mrs. Han and Mr. Han looked at each other. Originally, the couple wanted to wait for their daughter to marry for a year and a half before finding an opportunity for Pan Yujing to marry her. In this way, once the daughter becomes pregnant, her status will be stable. But now that things have turned out like this, it's no longer enough not to be afraid. In that case, why not? Mrs. Pan is decisive. Just based on other people's words, she concluded that her daughter's fall into the water was related to Miss Han. Before Mrs. Han could finish her words, Fan Qinjiao took a step forward with a smile and looked at Mrs. Pan with a faint smile. Mrs. Pan was stunned and looked at the beautiful girl in front of her. Not to be outdone, Pan Yulu took a step forward and said, what Princess Jingping said is too extreme. What I just said was what I saw with my own eyes. Only then did Mrs. Pan know that the person standing in front of her was Princess Jingping, who had caused a sensation in the main city. Mrs. Pan has heard a lot of rumors in the main city, but rumors are just rumors after all. A little girl's movie alone can stir up a lot of trouble. To be able to reach this point is probably just a good life. I don't quite understand what Princess Jingping said. I only know that my daughter has been wronged and this matter must not be let go. Mrs. Pan's tone was firm, but there was a strong sense of contempt in her eyes. It's not Mrs. Pan's fault for being uneducated, but it's Mrs. Pan's fault for being so arrogant and embarrassing. This means. It's so heartbreaking. Even though the other two princes and concubines present had already experienced Princess Jingping's sharp tongue, they never expected that in broad daylight, they would curse people as much as they wanted. Han Jingchen was stunned. Tathagata has a Buddha, and the Fan Kinjao she knows is the most steady and reasonable. The Han family and his wife were also stunned. It seems that Princess Jingping is the youngest among the princes and concubines, but her courage. As expected, he was able to force himself through the palace gate and defeat the courtiers. Pan Yujing, who had always been in Mrs. Pan's arms, never thought highly of Fan Kinjao. Even if she is lucky enough to become a princess, she will end up being a low-class person who is not well liked. But now facing Fan Kinjao's aggressive momentum, she had to speak. Sister Kinjao, don't be angry, it's all my fault. I accidentally fell and couldn't stand firm, so I fell into the lake. It really has nothing to do with cousin Jing Chen. Just listening to these words, it seems like this woman is trying to excuse Han Jing Chen. It's just that the pitiful and compromised look is not that good. It is obviously alluding to Fan Kinjao's use of power to bully others. Fan Kinjao, however, did not accept this trick at all. I was the one who kicked you into the lake. This matter has nothing to do with Jing Chen. The Han family couple. Pan family couple. Princes and concubines. This is the first time I heard that someone was kicked so confidently. Mrs. Pan's face turned black to ashes, and the arms holding her daughter were trembling with anger. I have long heard that Yolo talked about Princess Jingping and Jing Chen being sisters, but I didn't expect that they would be like this when I saw them today. Since Princess Jingping has admitted it, let's leave the matter to Fengtian Mansion to decide. Mrs. Pan still clings to Han Jing Chen. After all, only by using Han Jingchen's reputation to make a fuss can the Han family and his wife nod to send their daughter to the 6th prince's residence. Mrs. Han is grateful to Princess Jingping for fighting for her daughter's injustice, but now that things have become like this, if she doesn't agree to the Pan family's conditions, it may really end badly. But before Mrs. Han could speak, Fan Kinjao said again, "Why don't Mrs. Pan ask why I kicked someone?" Mrs. Pan gritted her teeth and said, "What, could it be that Qingping County took the initiative to hit someone and asked our family to apologize? Jing Chen and I were standing here, but we saw the second Miss Pan family rushing toward Jing Chen. I don't know what the real purpose of the second Miss Pan family was, but from my perspective, the second Miss Pan families I have tried to pull Jing Chen into the lake several times, and since I am eager to save people, I must protect the future 6th prince and concubine." Fan Kinjao narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Pan Yujing, who was nestling in Mrs. Pan's arms. "If we really want to apologize, the second Miss Pan family will definitely say sorry to us. Mr. Han has long heard that his daughter often talked about Princess Jingping, but it was just a false flattery between his younger daughters. In the end, I didn't expect Princess Jingping to do so for her daughter." Mrs. Han was also shocked, but her eyes quickly turned cold when she looked at Pan Rentung and his family. "Things have reached this point, what else is there that you don't understand?" Pan Yujing, who was curled up in her mother's arms, trembled all over. She never expected that Princess Jingping, whom she had always looked down upon, would be so difficult to deal with. Naturally, Pan Yujing couldn't let the situation get out of her control. She said with a pale face, "It's all my fault. Mother, please stop embarrassing cousin Jing Chen. In fact, I fell into the lake because I couldn't stand firm. It has nothing to do with anyone else." As long as Fan Kinjao doesn't admit that it was Fan Kinjao who kicked her into the lake, it would also be invalid for her to drag Han Jing Chen into the water. What happened just now was so urgent that there was no evidence at all. Now seeing Pan Yujing refusing to admit it, Fan Kinjao knew that she was betting that he had no choice. Fan Kinjao does not have any evidence. But Fan Kinjao is not a fool who is led away by a little girl. What if it is really the second Miss Pan family who fell into the lake by herself? She even walks unsteadily. I am afraid there is some hidden disease in her body. I happen to be proficient in medical skills and would like to examine it carefully for the second lady of the Pan family. Pan Yujing. I really feel like I'm going to be suffocated by Fan Kinjao. MRS Pan is going crazy. Of course Fan Kinjao cannot meet his daughter. Who in the main city doesn't know that Fan Kinjao inherited the mantle of the Tao family's medical daughter, and even the emperor praised her medical skills. If Fan Kinjao really made nonsense about his daughter's hidden illness, how could other doctors dare to deny it? At that time, let alone being unable to send a patient to the sixth prince's residence. Which ordinary person would dare to marry her daughter? Pan Yulu was worried that the plan would fail and she would not be able to explain it to the third prince, so she could only bite the bullet and walk out. This is the Han family after all. Our family's affairs will be discussed behind closed doors. Isn't Princess Jingping so aggressive? It's too broad. Han Jingchen, who had been silent, took a step forward and held Fan Kinjao's hand tightly. To me, Kinjao is better than family. Han Jingchen's firm answer made the Pan family's faces look even uglier. Fan Kinjao looked in the direction of Pan Yulu and smiled softly. The eldest lady of the Pan family will be the future third prince in a few days, but the second lady of the Pan family is trying to murder the future sixth prince at this time. Concubine, once this matter gets out, what we know is that the second young lady of the Pan family is young and inexperienced, and those who don't know may wonder if the third prince has any objections to the sixth prince. Since she was not allowed to diagnose her pulse, she naturally wanted to continue to make a fuss about Pan Yulu's deliberate attempt to pull Han Jingchen into the water. Pan Yulu's heart trembled when she heard these words. He looked around, wishing he could find something to plug Fan Kinjao's poisonous mouth. It is true that the third prince told this matter, but he must not be involved. It is not a trivial matter to kill siblings. Once the emperor hears about it, I am afraid that even the Pan family will be deprived of it. I just said casually, why should Princess Jingping care about it so much? Pan Yulu thought about it. Even if she gritted her teeth, she was so angry that she had to give up. Want to run away when you get into trouble? Where can there be such a cheap thing? Fan Kinjao looked at Pan Yulu casually. In a few days, I will go to the palace to increase military pay for the army. If I am really lucky enough to be able to meet the emperor, I will definitely mention this to the emperor. Pan Yulu. Is Princess Jingping a mad dog? Why are you insisting on it? Han Jingchen was really surprised when she saw Fan Kinjao standing beside her, motionless and full of aura. I thought this matter was going to be taken advantage of anyway, but I didn't expect it to be like this. I have to say that she enjoyed watching it today. MRS Pan looked at Pan Yulu, who didn't even dare to say anything, and finally realized that the development of the situation was no longer under her control. In desperation, she had to look at her master again. You should say something. The prince is still in power, but the third prince is so ambitious. Even if Pan Rentung took refuge with the third prince, he would still be on tenterhooks. In this case, when he learned that MRS Pan intended to send Pan Yujing to the sixth prince, he had no objection. As the saying goes, one more person means one more person to rely on. Unexpectedly, what was originally planned turned out to be beyond recognition. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 374. Chapter 374, It's just a fire pit, no need to panic. Pan Rentung walked up to MRS Han helplessly. I think what happened today was just a small misunderstanding. If it is a small mistake, it will not be a big mistake. Sister, are you right? This is obviously a remark. The Pan family will no longer pursue what happened just now. Mr. Han sighed almost inaudibly after hearing this. To the Pan family, my wife has always been caring and soft-hearted. Han Jingchen also glanced at Fan Kinjao helplessly. There is no need to say thank you, but there is also the possibility of saying sorry. After all, no matter how Fan Kinjao helps her out, it cannot change the outcome that has been decided. The Pan family members all raised their lips silently. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were determined to win. Especially Pan Yulu, whose excited eyes need no words at all. No matter how eloquent you Fan Kinjao is, you are still just an outsider. What is right and where is right? A sudden rhetorical question suddenly brought everyone back to reality. Pan Rentung looked at Mrs. Han in surprise. What do you mean, sister? Mrs. Han laughed angrily. It's difficult for my brother-in-law to be an official all his life and he doesn't even understand such a simple truth. She does remember that the Pan family is good, but that doesn't mean she can risk everything. Now that these Pan family members are planning to plot against her daughter, how can she continue to be patient? I call you brother-in-law because I care about my late sister, but it seems that my sister no longer exists in my brother-in-law's heart. In this case, there is no need for brother-in-law to call you sister in the future. Our Han and Pan families have even 8 poles can't hit them together. Pan Rentung was criticized for taking a step backward. Mrs. Pan said in disbelief, did Mrs. Han really do this for an outsider? Mrs. Han looked like who are you? To me, Mrs. Pan is not that close. For the sake of the second lady of the Pan family falling into the water, our Han family will not try to save her. Of course, if Madam really wants to go to Fengtian Mansion, our Han family will definitely accompany her to the end. Even though Princess Jingping is an outsider, she still deserves her gratitude. After finishing her words, Mrs. Han took the initiative to walk up to her daughter, not only took Han Jingchen's hand, but also took Fan Kinjao's hand, and walked out of everyone's sight like that. Mr. Han quickly called the maids in the mansion to come over. He also invited the 2 princes and concubines present to the front hall to have tea and rest. The remaining Pan family members stood there in shock, staring with big eyes. In the end, it was Pan Rentung who reacted first and turned around to leave. What else can I do if I don't leave? Should we continue to be treated as a joke here? Mrs. Pan had no choice but to stand up and follow Pan Yujing, who was so ashamed that she pretended to be dead. The remaining Pan Yula was dumbfounded, neither walking nor walking. The princes and concubines present today seem to be harmonious on the surface, but in fact they are just at odds with each other. Just like how they laughed at Han Jingchen just now, they will have to laugh at her now. A hand quietly rested on Pan Yula's shoulder. Pan Yula was surprised and came to her senses. When she saw it was Yan Hanbei, she was so aggrieved that she almost cried. Yan Hanbei did not participate in it just now, but he heard the people in the Han family talking about it. What's there to be aggrieved about? Since Fan Kinjao bullied others too much, we can just get him back. Pan Yula was stunned. Yan Hanbei has never explained it, but since he left the palace last time, Yan Hanbei's hostility towards Fan Kinjao has obviously become much lighter. Now looking at Yan Hanbei, whose eyes were full of disgust again, Pan Yula was really relieved. Even though her sister was not sent to the 6th prince's residence as promised, if they could win over the eldest prince, the Pan family would be able to make up for it on the 3rd prince's side. Today's small gathering is scheduled at the Han mansion, so even if something happened to Han Jingchen just now, we still have to maintain relations in the front hall. Mrs. Han took the opportunity to pull Fan Kinjao to the side hall. The gratitude in her eyes was self-evident. I really have to thank Princess Jingping for what happened today. Fan Kinjao smiled lightly and said, Mrs. Han is too polite. If we really talk about it, I should say thank you to Mrs. Han first. Fan Kinjao was naturally referring to the Han family's active rejection of the Xiao family. When Mrs. Han broke off the engagement, she was mostly worried about what her daughter would think. I am afraid that a smart person like Princess Jingping would also think about it. But now Princess Jingping took the initiative to bring this matter up to ease her gratitude. Looking at her behavior, she is worthy of being a woman who is about to become a crown princess. She is so convincing. Jingchen will be getting married in a few days, and Princess Jingping must come then. As Fan Kinjao, it is enough to support Han Jingchen's wedding. It's just that now the princes are starting to stand up for themselves. When Mrs. Han said these words, she was obviously extending an olive branch to Fan Qingjie. With the matchmaking of the Han family, Fan Qingjie wanted to win over the sixth prince for the crown prince, so he was close to the opportunity. Fan Qingjie is certainly not someone who doesn't appreciate compliments. This is going to bother Mrs. Han. In the memory of the previous life, although the sixth prince did not hold as much power as Bailey Rongs, he lived a stable life until the end. The struggle for power is about to reach a fever pitch, and every soldier is crucial. To be honest, the more Mrs. Han looks at Fan Qingjie, the more she likes him. She had heard a lot of rumors about Fan Qingjie in the past, but now that she got along with him, she discovered that Fan Qingjie was not only very easy to talk to, but his whole person gave people a friendly and indifferent feeling. While Fan Qingjie was chatting with Mrs. Han, the atmosphere in the main hall gradually relaxed. I don't know what's causing the commotion in the main hall, but even the other two princes and concubines look excited. Fan Qingjie chatted with Mrs. Han for a few more words before getting up and walking out of the side hall. As a result, before reaching the main hall, Han Jingchen came out anxiously. "Qingjie, go quickly." Fan Qingjie was stunned. "What's going on?" Han Jingchen took Fan Qingjie's hand and started to walk out. "Don't ask." At this moment, Qing Shui, the maid next to Han Jingchen, came over carrying tea. When he sees his young lady, he raises his voice and asks an, "Miss, where are you going?" Hearing this voice, everyone in the main hall got up and walked out. When they saw Han Jingchen holding Fan Qingjie's hand and walking out, everyone showed a very subtle expression. Everyone just wants to be lively and happy. Even if the sixth prince and concubine really doesn't like it, it would be fine if she refuses directly. Why bother to leave in shame? Naturally, the only one who can speak so directly is Yan Hanbei. Han Jingchen smiled and held Fan Qingjie's hand but did not let go. "Earlier I fell in love with the crown princess's pair of earrings, and today I thought of coming here shamelessly. Fortunately, the crown princess is a generous person. Aren't you about to go back to the mansion to get it for me in person? The princes and concubines present will be getting married in a few days, so it is normal for them to change their tune at this time. But Fan Qingjie still has more than a year, and changing his words now would mean using his status to pressure others." Han Jingchen didn't care so much. She looked at Fan Qingjie and said, "This will trouble the crown princess." Fan Qingjie can certainly hear such obvious explanations. Others present could understand it as well. "It's such a pity. Originally, we wanted to take out all the boxes we added to see each other, but the crown princess just left. What we knew was a coincidence, but what we didn't know was that we thought the crown princess was inconvenienced." "Where is it?" Yan Hanbei glanced at Fan Qingjie as he spoke. It was just a glance, but the hostility became even stronger. Fan Qingjie always knew that Yan Hanbei didn't like her, but he never talked about hatred. But now, Yan Hanbei's eyes were shining with extremely obvious hatred and resentment. Faced with Yan Hanbei's harassment, Pan Yulu, who had just eaten hot pot at Fan Qingjie's place, looked on with cold eyes. Of course the second princess will not stand in the way. The so-called get-together before getting married was all about showing off, and she wanted to take the opportunity to stand out. As for the eighth princess, she has no right to speak at all. Originally, her marriage was granted behind the scenes of all the princes and concubines. The emperor didn't even post the royal list, he just simply conveyed the decree of marriage. So she can be said to be a humble person now. Of course, she also hopes to gain a foothold in front of other princes and concubines by showing off. Looking at Han Jingchen blocking her sideways, the princes and concubines all knew what was going on. Obviously, the extra box given by the crown princess cannot be obtained. Yan Hanbei didn't intend to let Fan Qingjie go so easily. He directly called the maid next to him and said, When you go to the western suburbs mansion, just say that you are going to help the crown princess get her earrings. Han Jingchen's heart skipped a beat in anxiety. But before she could speak, Fan Qingjao said with a smile, "This will trouble the eldest princess." When everyone else heard this, they all looked like they were watching a good show. It is obvious that the crown princess cannot escape. Han Jingchen looked at Fan Qingjao in disbelief. "You knew it was a fire pit and you jumped into it?" Fan Qingjao curled his lips silently, unfazed by the favor or humiliation. "It's just a fire pit, no need to panic." Han Jingchen. You are awesome. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 375. Chapter 375. Are all Princess Jingping so rich? All the princes and concubines were well prepared for this small gathering. Within a moment, the most valuable boxes of each prince and concubine were carried into the front hall by the servants. In Ziliang, the so-called adding boxes naturally means that the more boxes, the bigger and the better. So when the princes and concubines present opened the boxes they had brought, the front hall of the Han family was filled with pearls and gold and silver. Of course, I didn't really count the numbers carefully, and the responses seemed to be almost the same. Fan Qingjao is a princess who will get married in a year's time, so it is reasonable even if she does not add a box now. Yan Hanbei, however, was not interested in drinking. I heard that the crown princess and the sixth prince have always had a close relationship. Since we can't see the crown princess's gift box, it would be good to see the crown princess give the sixth prince's gift box. Han Jingchen had long thought that Yan Hanbei would say this, and turned to look at Qing Shuidao. "Just go and move the box inlaid with beads in my room." That box was certainly not sent by Fan Qingjao, but fortunately she had seen the contents, so it could be used in emergencies. Anyway, no one present knew what Fan Qingjao had given him. Pan Yulu took the lead and said with a smile, "Since it is the crown princess who takes action, she is the one who is going to shock our eyes." Yan Hanbei sneered and nodded. "I heard that the princess is supporting the army's salary. Now it's just a small addition. How can we get the princess? The Hua family has already been in the limelight for a long time. Even this year's military pay is probably all made up by renting a shop. How could the other two princes and concubines not hear such a blatant praise?" Facing Fan Qingjao, who stepped on top of them and became the princess, how could they say they were not jealous? Since the eldest prince's concubine and the third prince's concubine are taking the initiative to make things difficult, they must wait to see the joke. Han Jingchen gave Fan Qingjao a look that didn't panic. Even if these people want to see a joke, it depends on whether she will give it to her. Before Han Jingchen could finish thinking about what was in his mind, he saw Qing Shui enter the door. Just looking at the small box held by Qing Shui at this moment, Han Jingchen was so shocked that she even lost her expression. The princes and concubines, who had been waiting impatiently for a long time, could not help but laugh lowly when they looked at the box that was about the size of a palm. Just such a box, how much can it hold? Pan Yula covered her lips with a handkerchief, half smiling but not smiling. The princess's new box is indeed exquisite enough. Yan Hanbei looked at Qing Shui and said, "Now that you have brought it all, let us open our eyes." Qing Shui didn't look at his lady's expression and placed the box in the center of the table. Han Jingchen, who came to her senses later, looked at Fan Qingjao apologetically. It was all her fault. She didn't expect that there was a rat around her. However, before Fan Qingjao could react, there were sudden gasping sounds in the main hall. Han Jingchen was really angry. She stood up suddenly and wanted to see the guest off directly. Just when her eyes inadvertently brushed against something on the table, she was stunned in surprise. The small box with an unattractive appearance has long been opened, and a red coral bracelet is quietly placed inside. Looking from a distance, its luster is gorgeous, warm and pleasant. Looking closely, The textures of each bead are slightly different, but they complement each other. Thousand-year-old coral is red for thousands of years. It grows 1 inch every 20 years and 1 kilogram every 300 years. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is the best in the collection. Everyone present was really stunned, not to mention stunned. Even though it is just a small bracelet, it is still priceless. Han Jingchen had never opened it before, but now that she saw it was so valuable, she didn't know what to say. The second and eighth princesses were frightened. How rich is this crown princess? She even gives away such top-notch products as a gift? Yan Hanbei's face turned blue and he didn't know what to say. Just at this time, Yan Hanbei's maid came back with an exquisite mahogany box in her hand. This is what the nun next to the crown princess asked the servant to give to the crown princess, the maid said, and handed over the earrings. Fan Qinjiao took it without even looking at it, but handed it over to Han Jingchen. Although Han Jingchen just wanted to excuse her, she could still afford a pair of earrings as a gift. Just when Han Jingchen opened the box, everyone present was stunned again. Jade hairpins and silver beads are dazzling. Whether it is the exquisite carving of the jade hairpin or the color of the round pearl, it is enough to prove its high value. No one around Fan Qinjiao is a freeloader. As soon as Guyan Hanbei's maid showed up, they all knew what to do. It was this tacit understanding that caused the people in the room to fall into silence again. Naturally, everyone looked even more uncomfortable. The crown princess is the real thing as soon as she throws it out casually. Looking at their boxes of gold and silver, apart from the vulgarity, there is only vulgarity left. Fortunately, Pan Yulu reacted quickly, suppressing the bitterness in her heart, and said, "I didn't expect the crown princess to be so powerful, but it helped us sisters present understand why the emperor wanted to marry the crown princess alone. Obviously it was just a bag of money that the emperor gave to the court. But no matter how rich you are, the result is that you will be scorned by the prince." The other two princes and concubines felt a lot more comfortable after hearing this. Fan Qinjiao's life experience is not a secret in the main city. Thinking about the great quarrel between the Fan family and the Hua family back then, it can be said that everyone knows it. Even long after the incident, people in the main city still joked about it after dinner. Later on, what if Fan Qinjiao returned to the Hua family justifiably? The Hua family fell down before they even said it was about to fall. To put it bluntly, Fan Qinjiao, the Qingping princess, seems to have infinite scenery, but he is just an empty shell of a fatherless bastard. The emperor placed Fan Qinjiao in the position of crown princess, for what else besides the annual military salary? But the women present were different. A lady from a well-known family cannot be compared to someone like Fan Qinjiao. Fan Qinjiao smiled lightly, "No matter why, I am the one who was given the opportunity to marry and become the crown princess. This means..." It's so heartbreaking. Pan Yula was so angry that her face turned blue. The reason why he didn't die on the spot was because he was young and in good health. Yan Hanbei gritted his teeth and said, "What the third prince and concubine said is only the truth. Why should the crown prince be so aggressive?" Fan Qinjiao smiled softly, and did not even look at Yan Hanbei, let alone answer. Han Jingchen naturally fought for Fan Qinjiao. But before she could speak, Fan Qinjiao shook his head and said, "It's getting late, so I'll go back first. Since you are defeated, there is really no need to continue wasting time. It doesn't matter what they think." In Fan Qinjiao's eyes, these people are not worth mentioning, let alone their thoughts. Facing Fan Qinjiao's free and easy attitude, Han Jingchen really admired her deeply again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 376. Chapter 376 His Royal Highness the Crown Prince personally greeted. However, in the eyes of Yan Hanbei and Pan Yulu, Fan Kinjao's free and easy attitude is nothing more than the stubbornness of a dead duck. After all, everyone in the main city now knows that the prince is not satisfied with this marriage at all. So neither Yan Hanbei nor Pan Yulu thought they had lost. No matter how straight up Fan Kinjao is, being despised by the prince is a definite fact. It is this kind of firm thought that gives them the slightest comfort in their hearts, who have been stepped on by Fan Kinjao. Even the second and eighth princesses who were walking at the back couldn't help but feel happy and comfort themselves in their hearts when they saw Fan Kinjao walking alone in front. Ziliang women are all considered to be weak and beautiful, and even today's sages like beauties who are soft and boneless. They have never seen any showy woman favored by men. To put it bluntly, the reason why the crown princess is so powerful is because the prince dislikes her. At the foot of the steps of the Han family's mansion, a carriage was parked quietly. Under the setting sun, the reflection of a carriage with elegant lines passed leisurely on the ground. The carriage is made of expensive and restrained Huanghuali wood on all sides, and the stone dragon statue on the roof is lifelike. The dragon carriage is the privilege and symbol of the princes. For a time, several princes and concubines were stunned on the spot. Even though no one took the initiative to come forward, who didn't hope that the carriage was coming to greet them? Yan Hanbei subconsciously looked at Pan Yulu beside him. She had heard that the third prince had always been kind to Pan Yulu. Pan Yulu naturally hoped that the person sitting in the carriage was the third prince. Now that Yan Hanbei saw him like this, her expectations and determination were inevitably stronger. The third prince is a gentle and approachable person, so it would be reasonable for him to come to pick him up in person. The maid who was following Pan Yulu hurried to the carriage and looked at the driver. "Why are you so ignorant, my slave? Why don't you come down quickly to greet our lady?" The coachman glanced at the maid coldly, and then jumped out of the carriage. Once he landed on the ground, he was taller than the maid by a head. The coachman glanced at the maid expressionlessly. "Give me." The maid did not expect that the coachman was so tall, and was stunned. He seemed to be frightened by the driver's aura, and he just took a few steps back obediently. The princes and concubines on the steps were also surprised when they saw this scene. No wonder the third prince is the only prince who can be on an equal footing with the prince, even the servants around him are so imposing. Pan Yulu frowned slightly. Just because she didn't remember such a person beside the third prince. While everyone was silent, the coachman finally stood in front of Fan Kinjao. Since Fan Kinjao knew the person in front of him, he took the initiative and said, "Why did Master Xiaoxian come here in person?" "Xiaoxian Xiaofu. Isn't that the person next to His Royal Highness the Prince of the East Palace?" As soon as these words came out, the surrounding princes and concubines were stunned. They looked at Xiaoxian in front of them in disbelief, and then looked at the carriage not far away in shock. If the person standing here is Master Donggong, then the person sitting in the carriage at this moment must be Your Highness the Crown Prince. The relationship between Xiaoxian and Fan Kinjao did not happen overnight. To put it more recently, due to the friendship between Xiaoxian and Fan Kinjao, such a formal title is no longer needed. But now, Fan Kinjao is called by his official title. His actions are obviously to correct and elevate Xiaoxuan's identity. How could Xiaoxian not know Miss Kinjao's intentions? It is precisely because of this that he feels even more unworthy of Miss Kinjao. Looking at those young ladies who relied on their posture and hard work to become princes and concubines, how can they be compared with Miss Kinjao? Especially when he thought of the sarcastic faces of these princes and concubines just now, Xiaoxian was extremely disgusted. Now he deliberately raised his voice and said, "I have been ordered by the Crown Prince to come to greet the Crown Princess." Fan Kinjao didn't know that Xiaoxian was trying to support her, so he smiled lightly and said, "Let's go." Xiaoxian walked to Fan Kinjao's side and protected her all the way down the steps. His powerful aura is as if the princes and concubines standing behind him are all ferocious beasts. Fan Kinjao was a little surprised by Xiaoxuan's arrival, but he was not surprised. It is true that Xiaoxian is the young master of the East Palace, but he can also obey the orders of the queen. Perhaps the empress just asked Xiaoxian to pick her up today. Even if she and Bailey Fengming don't get along, it wouldn't be surprising for the queen to pretend to be a peacemaker. After all, she is now the crown princess betrothed by the emperor. Just when Fan Kinjao stood beside the carriage door was pushed open from the inside out. A hand with distinct joints slowly stretched out from inside. The wide snow-white sleeves half covered the back of the hand, complementing the white skin. The slender fingers slowly bloomed like an epiphyllum. Looking at this hand, Fan Kinjao was really surprised. Unexpectedly, Bailey Fengming came here on his own. Before Fan Kinjao could think about it, his hand took the initiative to hold hers. The hot palms warmed her slightly cold fingers. Everyone on the steps had their eyes widened, looking at the two people holding hands in disbelief. Pan Yulu's face was already as ugly as possible. His maid was still standing there, but the people who came to greet her completely ignored her. The expressions of the other princes and concubines were actually not that good either. Just now they were ridiculing Fan Kinjao for not being favored, but now the prince has blocked the door. Fortunately, there were no people passing by nearby, otherwise they would really not know where to put their faces. Seeing Fan Kinjao drive away in a carriage, everyone on the steps also got into the carriage. Even the false flattery when parting was omitted, and they all went home in despair. In the Han mansion, Qing Shui was kneeling on the ground and was trembling all over. Han Jingchen weighed a bag of broken silver in her hand, her eyes filled with coldness. Just for this small amount of silver, do you want to sell me out? How could Qing Shui have the courage to go against her wishes if he wasn't being instigated by others? In the end, she just cheated a little bit, and Qing Shui revealed everything. It's not that this slave has to help the eldest princess, but what the eldest princess said is right. If the second young lady of the Pan family can marry the young lady to the sixth prince's house, she can help the young lady. Otherwise, even if there is no second young lady of the Pan family today, someone else will marry the sixth prince as his concubine in the future. Qing Shui knelt on the ground and cried until her eyes were blurred with tears. Which prince doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? The second lady of the Pan family is at least one of his own. To put it bluntly, Princess Jingping is delaying things. Han Jingchen really felt that calling Qing Shui in front of him for questioning was the stupidest thing he did. Looking at Qing Shui, who didn't know she was wrong, she was too lazy to speak again. If Fan Kinjao didn't come today, she might have resigned to her parents' arrangement. But what Fan Kinjao taught her was not to fight against fate, but to go on firmly. She could tolerate the sixth prince taking concubines and marrying concubines in the future, but she could never allow others to crush her under the guise of doing anything good for her. Pan Yujing dared to plot against her like this before she even entered the sixth prince's door. What if she actually entered the door in the future? Therefore, she was really lucky to have Fan Kinjao by her side. It's just that Han Jingchen knew that Qing Shui didn't understand it at all. She signaled to the nanny beside her, "Tug him out and send him to the garbage yard." Mammy quickly called 2 boys in and dragged Qing Shui out. Qing Shui cried and said, "Miss, you must listen to me. I am doing this for your own good. You don't know that Princess Jingping is a snake-hearted person. The reason why Miss Yan can marry the eldest prince is because of Princess Jingping. It was secretly prompted that the slave saw with her own eyes the note written by someone to the eldest princess." Han Jingchen's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 377. Chapter 377 The Queen's Majesty and Methods. At this time, it was Fan Kinjao who was sitting in the carriage. Looking at the young man in front of him who looked like a deep valley orchid, he would be lying if he said he was not surprised. She knew Bailey Fengming's sincerity towards her. But she also understood that Bailey Fengming was by no means the kind of person who lost his position because of small things. Facing Fan Qingjiao's doubts, Bailey Fengming just slightly retracted his arms and hugged her soft body tightly in his arms. She lowered her eyes slightly, and the corners of her lips caressed her delicate ear intentionally or unintentionally. "I miss you very much." A soft and melodious voice with a sultry ending. Fan Qingjiao's ears felt slightly hot from the breath he exhaled, and his heart trembled inexplicably. Looking at the handsome face so close, Fan Qingjiao felt that his breathing began to heat up, and even the words he spoke were a bit burning. "You did it on purpose just now." Even if Bailey Fengming really wanted to see her, there were many other ways. But he chose the most eye-catching one. Bailey Fengming hugged her a little tighter and fixed her to his chest. He longed for the fair cheeks that he had been dreaming about day and night. His voice was as rich as a bottle of century-old wine. "That's it, Bar." Facing his calmness, Fan Qingjiao felt clear in his heart. After a long while, he whispered again, "But the Queen." Bailey Fengming chuckled. "The Queen even said she wanted to hide it from you so that you wouldn't be under so much pressure. But you guessed it right all of a sudden. It's hard for the Queen's good intentions." Fan Qingjiao was not surprised by the Queen's move. The person in the palace nodded and agreed to her marriage to Bailey Fengming, but the marriage was intertwined with that person's selfish ambition and strong desire for control. And if Bailey Fengming wanted the person in the palace to dispel his doubts, the only thing he could do was to do nothing. So there is almost no need to guess about this matter. Fan Qingjiao knows who did it. Fan Qingjiao was right. Queen Zhen 11 could not allow the situation to develop like this. Didn't the emperor hope that Fengming and Xiao Qingjiao had no feelings and were strangers to each other, so that the two children could be controlled by him? Then she followed the emperor's wishes and simply fulfilled his wishes to the extreme. Lily thought that today was a gathering of the princes and concubines, so she couldn't help but worry. "I don't know how much the Prince Jingping will be laughed at. She has seen too many royal women. On the surface, they are troublesome, but in fact, they are all out of comparison and oppression." Empress Zhen 11 is clearly aware of Baihe's worries. She just treats her as her precious daughter-in-law, and it's not the turn of others to point fingers. Isn't it still going on over there at Yu Palace? During this period, concubine Yu was still secretly sending people to inquire about the Queen's departure from the palace, but no substantial evidence was ever found. Empress Zhen 11 really felt that she had let go of too many things. Otherwise, in the current imperial palace, it would be Yu Palace's turn to dictate matters. Send a palace servant who had a good relationship with Yuning in the past to walk around in front of the palace gate. There is no need to be secretive. Tell them openly that I am leaving the palace to see Xiao Qingjiao. Lily was stunned for a moment. If this happens, I'm afraid concubine Yu will use the topic again. What we need is to let them use the topic to their advantage. Yu Palace is keeping an eye on her, and sooner or later they will find out about her leaving the palace without permission. Now it seems that she is still the master of the sixth palace in this palace, but in fact, she is supported by concubine Yu's minions behind the scenes. In this case, it would be better for her to take the initiative and let the news out. As for who can grasp the emperor's thoughts, everyone must rely on their own abilities. Empress Zhen 11's eyes gradually sank when she thought of all the arrogance that concubine Yu had. A person is not as good as 1,000 days, and a flower is not as red as 100 days. Concubine Yu may never understand this in her lifetime. So Queen Zhengzi is not in a hurry, the road is still long, and everything has just begun. As Fenji Palace released the news that the Queen had left the palace privately, within half an hour, news came from the Imperial Palace that Yuning had agreed to meet the Emperor. Empress Zhen 11 deliberately did not dress up and went out without makeup. Lily hurriedly came over and said, "Queen, The duck soup in the small kitchen hasn't been stewed enough yet. Empress Gen 11 curled her lips indifferently. No matter how good the stew is, no one will drink it, so why not save some firewood for me? Lily. When Empress Gen 11 walked into the imperial study with old duck soup, she saw Yuning squeezing the emperor's shoulders. The old duck soup has just been stewed in the small kitchen. I just wanted to bring it to the emperor as soon as possible. Queen Gen 11 walked straight to the emperor as if she didn't see Yuning, and put the soup in her hand on the desk. Superior. Emperor Yongchang opened his eyes slightly and swept the soup cup in front of him to the ground. There's a rush. The old duck soup that was still steaming was all dumped to the ground. Yuning quickly knelt on the ground and said, "Your Majesty, please calm down." Emperor Yongchang held Yuning's hand, and the worry in his eyes was obvious. "This matter has nothing to do with you." Empress Gen 11 caught the worry that could not be hidden in the emperor's eyes, and she turned around and left calmly. Emperor Yongchang looked coldly in the direction of the queen. "I haven't finished speaking yet. Where does the queen want to go?" Queen Gen 11 seemed to have no choice but to turn around, and before the emperor could continue to speak, she took the initiative to kneel on the ground. "I just missed the emperor, so I wanted to come over and have a look. If I knew that the emperor was in a bad mood, I would not dare to disturb him. Anyway, I'm used to being alone these days and can't think about anything." Emperor Yongchang narrowed his eyes slightly and asked, "What does the queen mean by this?" "I dare not hide anything from the emperor. I went out of the palace privately a few days ago." Yuning, who was standing behind Emperor Yongchang, frowned unconsciously. She never expected that Queen Zhengzi would dare to confess on her own initiative. Emperor Yongchang looked at the queen silently, seeming to be thinking about it. Empress Gen 11 paused and continued, "I heard that not long ago, the princes and concubines were going to get together. I just wanted to go see Princess Jingping. Even if the prince didn't care, the emperor was already there. The marriage was granted, but the result was unexpected." Emperor Yongchang waved his hands in confusion. The queen continued. "Princess Jingping was bold and ungrateful. Not only was she ungrateful for the concubine's visit, Princess Jingping even threatened that she and the prince disliked each other. The prince also had the same idea. This was just right. The Hua family was already once a harmonious person is born, it doesn't matter if there is another one." Yuning seemed to be surprised and said, "It is the emperor's decision to grant a marriage, so how dare Princess Jingping?" Empress Gen 11 looked at Yuning with approval, but her words were not very pleasant. "If Princess Jingping really agrees to have the same temperament as Yuning, I will naturally not worry." Yuning. "I really didn't expect that under such circumstances, the queen would find time to scold her for clinging to powerful people and forgetting her own good for the sake of profit. Is this the majesty and means of the queen?" End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 378. Chapter 378 Showing affection according to the order. Yuning was very angry, but she didn't dare to confront the queen. She could only whisper in the emperor's ear, "I think the queen's words are serious. How can a princess dare to resist marriage like this?" It was just that Emperor Yongchang did not reply to Yuning's words. I have to say that what the queen just said reminded Emperor Yongchang of all that happened in the past. Bringing a coffin to the uterus, making decisions about parents and divorce. More than this. Dare to stand in front of him, who is the 9th master, and negotiate terms. Fan Qinjiao, who is so independent from the world, is naturally different from other official ladies. When Queen Gen 11 saw that the emperor's eyes began to flicker, she knew that he was already wavering. In line with the idea of just leaving a breath for the emperor, Queen Gen 11 said again, "I don't like Princess Jingping, but since it is a marriage granted by the emperor, I have to recognize it even if I pinch my nose. I just didn't expect that Princess Jingping would be so ungrateful." She would dare to threaten to divorce her in front of her concubines. If our Ziliang crown princess really breaks up with the prince, she will only be embarrassed by her Hua family. Once the crown princess makes peace with the prince, the Hua family will no longer need the face, and the imperial court will also no longer need the face. And the face of the emperor of Ziliang. Even if you want to be afraid, you will have to do it. What Emperor Yongchang was interested in at first was the mutual dislike between the prince and Fan Qingjie. In this way, he can let two people monitor each other and work for him. But when it comes to Heli, Emperor Yongchang is the person he least wants to see. After all, the current prince is quite well behaved and sensible, but no one can guarantee that the prince will have no ambition in the future. Furthermore, Fan Qingjie has always been an uncertain factor in Emperor Yongchang's heart. It is impossible for Emperor Yongchang to influence Fan Qingjie's marriage forever. So whether it is Fan Qingjie or the prince, they have to be under their noses to feel at ease. Empress Zhen 11 knew that the emperor had begun to feel restless, so she wisely closed her mouth. It is often better to stop talking about many things right away than to talk too thoroughly. Yuning originally came to complain, but unexpectedly, after the emperor found out that the queen left the palace privately, not only did he have no intention of punishing her, but he actually remained silent. Thinking about it more carefully, Yuning realized more and more that something was wrong. Although she still can't understand what the queen is planning, as long as she doesn't satisfy the queen, she said, the queen is the mother of a country, how can she allow Princess Jingping to ignore her like this? Your Majesty, I have a concubine. Oops. Before Yuning could finish her words, Queen Zhengzi screamed in pain. Emperor Yongchang looked out and saw Queen Zhen 11 who was kneeling on the ground silently picking up the fragments in the soup. She accidentally cut her fingertips on the sharp fragments. Blood is flowing out little by little. Although Emperor Yongchang was not the only one who favored Queen Zhengzi, he spent the longest time with Queen Zhengzi. Thinking about the misunderstanding I had just had with the queen, and seeing that the queen was still kneeling on the ground and not daring to get up, I felt even more guilty. Regardless of Yuning still standing behind him, Emperor Yongchang stood up and walked to Queen Zhengzi's side. How could you be so careless? What would I do if something happened to you? Emperor Yongchang helped Queen Zhengzi up. It's my concubine who worries. The emperor's sister Yuning is still here, so I won't disturb the emperor. Empress Zhen 11 really just left. Although there was still a deep nostalgia in her eyes, she turned around gracefully and left the imperial study without giving the emperor a chance to react. Emperor Yongchang looked at the old duck soup that was still broken on the ground, and finally couldn't help but ordered, "Bai Tu, pass on my order, send the prince over, and then tell Fenji Palace to prepare, I will go later. Use perfection." Empress Zhen 11 stood outside the door and smiled calmly. No matter who is standing in the royal study at the moment, it is too naive to compete with her for favors. What the emperor is worried about now is her cut finger, and he is worried about the marriage between the prince and Xiao Qingjie. As for Yuning, it is better to keep her mouth shut obediently. Otherwise, she might be the one who is kicked out of the royal study by accident. Just as Queen Zhen 11 thought, a quarter of an hour later, Yuning walked out of the imperial study with a pale face. At the same time, the prince was summoned to appear in front of the emperor. Emperor Yongchang felt a headache for the first time when he looked at the prince, who looked like a piece of wood when he mentioned the word Fan Qingjie. But it was precisely because of this that Emperor Yongchang had no scruples in letting the prince and Fan Qingjie maintain a superficial relationship. If Fan Qingjie really made peace, he would no longer have to be the prince. To be honest, the current Bailey Fengming is basically showing off his affection. Fan Qingjie suddenly remembered what the queen had said last time. But I really didn't expect that the queen could do so much for her. Ayao, his voice suddenly sounded in her ears. The lips attached to the ear were so hot that the tip of his tongue touched her skin as if intentionally or unintentionally. Almost instantly, half of Fan Qingjie's body went numb. The lips spread along the base of her ears, and finally kissed her slightly open mouth. Fan Kinjao instinctively raised his hands to support the shoulders in front of him, but found that the arms around his waist were tightening, as if he wanted to rub her into his bones. My breathing gradually became faster and my whole body felt very hot. Such a 100-mile phoenix is like a fire, seeming to burn her up together. Just when Fan Kinjao was about to suffocate, the lips that had been occupying her mouth moved away slightly. Looking at Fan Kinjao, who quickly exhaled a heavy breath, Bailey Fengming laughed dumbly. He raised his hand and gently stroked the bright red lips he kissed, and his dark eyes were still stained with the turbid residual warmth. Fan Kinjao had no choice but to call out his name, Bailey Fengming. The voice was hoarse in a way that even she could not imagine. Bailey Fengming's eyes darkened again, and he softly said, Is this why you left the palace? At present, Bailey Fengming is leaving the palace according to the order, which is the time when the emperor has neglected to monitor. There has been a lot of calm inside and outside the palace recently, and Fan Kinjao thought he would seize the opportunity to reveal something that was inconvenient to say. We will be heading to the palace soon. As the saying goes, only by being prepared can there be no danger. Bailey Fengming suddenly hugged her waist tightly and turned her around to sit on his lap. Gazing at her delicate facial features at close range, he lowered his face slightly, and only when his lips were almost touching hers again, he whispered, There is still some time. Fan Kinjao frowned and was about to think about what he meant when his eyes darkened again. The hot lips occupied her mouth again, without giving her a chance to think about it. He led her into a new round of kissing. This time, Bailey Fengming completely trapped Fan Kinjao in his chest. And his kiss slowly moved downwards from the lips that were originally kissed by him, kissing behind the white ears and the slender neck. Fan Kinjao was overwhelmed and felt that the person in front of him was breathing more and more rapidly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 379. Chapter 379, Shooting the First Bird. Fortunately, at this moment, Shaoxuan's voice sounded outside the door, Your Highness, we are here. Although Bailey Fengming did not respond, he still stopped his original movements and buried his head in her temples. He rubbed his cheek slightly against her smooth and delicate face to calm down little by little. I don't know how long it took before he reluctantly let go of her in his arms. I really want to marry you as soon as possible. Fan Kinjao arranged his clothes helplessly, not even bothering to say anything. Bailey Fengming smiled lowly, held her hand and pulled her out of the carriage together. The excitement on the street surrounded the two of them. Looking up at the restaurant plaque in front of him, Fan Kinjao was not surprised. Since it is an order to show affection, one must always show off in public. Because it was not a meal, there were not many people eating in the restaurant. Fan Kinjao followed Bailey Fengming to the second floor and entered a private room under the guidance of the waiter. After the waiter quickly served the dishes, he closed the door of the private room and left. Fan Kinjao didn't have much appetite, so he simply recounted what happened in Han Mansion today. Bailey Fengming pushed a cup of tea in front of Fan Kinjao. He was not surprised when he heard this. The sixth emperor's younger brother and concubine left early, but his mother's Zhou family is the right deputy of the Metropolitan Procuratorate. Mr. Zhou has quite a lot of connections in the main city. Now the Minister of Dali Temple and the Minister of Taikang Temple are both Mr. Zhou's former proud disciples. Fan Kinjao did not expect that the family of the sixth prince, mother, and concubine would be so glorious. No wonder Bailey Rongs was thinking about sending the Pan family members off to the sixth prince's residence. As long as you flatter the sixth prince, you can use it as a stepping stone to get through to the Zhou family. The sixth prince's mother's family is a good piece of fat. I'm afraid the third prince will not give up so easily. Based on Fan Kinjao's understanding of Bailey Wrongs, he will never give up before he achieves his goal. No wonder Bailey Wrongs was able to get along like a fish in the main city in his previous life. It seemed that he had already won over the Zhou family at that time. Brother Three Emperors wanted to win over the Zhou family. It was a good idea, but the mistake was that he was too impatient. Bailey Fengming took a bite of this fried pork and it was pretty good, so he even gave it to Fan Kinjao. Fan Kinjao's thoughts were all on what Bailey Fengming just said. Now that the princes have reached the age of establishing their own families, it is not only Bailey Wrongs who wants to win over the powerful, but the other princes have also thought of this. It would be fine if Bailey Wrongs really succeeded in winning over the Zhou family. But if Bailey Wrongs did not win over the Zhou family, but instead revealed his intention to win over the Zhou family, he would naturally be regarded as a thorn in the side and a thorn in the flesh by the other princes. The taste of eating a piece of fat alone is delicious, but if you are competing with others for a piece of fat, the taste is very sour and refreshing. Fan Kinjao knew that Bailey Fengming had already established a charter, so he stopped talking. Just at this moment, a carriage passed by on the street downstairs. Although it is not visible inside, the dragon on the carriage shed is enough to illustrate his identity as a prince. Fan Kinjao immediately understood that when the Genii kingdom came to visit, all the princes would put all their thoughts on the regent of the Genii kingdom. After all, if they could really win the favor of the regent of the Genii kingdom, they would definitely be there. Give the strongest support on the way to fight for power. Just like now, there are still princes riding in carriages to the palace. And Bailey Wrongs took advantage of this opportunity to target the Zhou family. The regent of Genii kingdom is not that easy to get along with. Fan Kinjao turned to look at Bailey Fengming. She was really surprised that he could say such a thing. Could it be that you are arrogant and arrogant? Bailey Fengming smiled. It would be great if this were really the case. It has been a while since the Genii kingdom arrived in Ziliang. However, except for hearing the voice of the regent of the Genii kingdom in front of the palace gate, no one has seen the regent of the Genii kingdom, not even his prince. The palace was closed all day without any visitors. A few days ago, the regent of the Genii kingdom met with my father. They only had a brief chat and then nothing more happened. In this case, the purpose of Genai's coming to Ziliang is still a mystery until now. Bailey Fengming paused and continued, but I heard that my father gave the regent of the Genii kingdom a token to enter and exit the palace. During this period, we can also see people from the Genii kingdom entering and leaving the palace. Fan Kinjao frowned slightly, so, apart from the emperor, no one has seen the regent. Bailey Fengming shook his head. The regent of the Genii kingdom is indeed mysterious, but the favored Yuning next to my father promised to go to the palace where the Genii kingdom is located all day long. The news from the emperor was that the operation promised to do it every day. I will accompany the prince of Genii kingdom. A promise to be by the emperor's side, but he will stay with the prince of a foreign country all day long. Such a thing is unreasonable no matter how you look at it. But if we look at it from another angle. Suddenly, Fan Kinjao remembered the smell he smelled in the Genii kingdom's team that day. I'm afraid that the purpose of Genai's visit to Ziliang is to cure his illness. Fan Kinjao clearly remembered that the entire team of the Genii kingdom was filled with the smell of the nine-tailed nightshade sunflower. If she only relied on the smell, she would not be sure of the purpose of the Genii kingdom's arrival in Ziliang. But if all the things were combined, if they are all connected in series, the answer is obvious. The late emperor of Genii kingdom has passed away, and there is only one prince under his knees. If the people in the court find out that the only prince is suffering from a hidden illness, the whole court will be shaken. Of course, this information must not be leaked to other countries. Now that all countries are equally powerful, no one can guarantee whether someone will target the Genii kingdom when it is leaderless. At present, the regent of the Genii kingdom personally brought the prince to Ziliang for medical treatment, but he could not believe that he was directly informed of the prince's condition, so he asked the emperor for a sign indicating his departure from the palace, in order to facilitate the Genii kingdom himself. Looking for a reliable doctor in the main city of Ziliang. As for the reason why Yuning can stay with the prince, I'm afraid this will be the case too. I always have to find an opportunity to meet the people of Genii country. Yuning is the person who likes the imperial concubine. Yuning's purpose of contacting the people of Genii is just to win over the regent for Bailey wrongs. Fan Kinjao would not just watch the regent of Genii kingdom become Bailey wrongs' pocket. The emperor can even give the tokens for entering and exiting the palace to the Genii kingdom, which shows his respect for the Genii kingdom. If Bailey wrongs really gets the support of the regent of Genii kingdom, Bailey Fengming's position as prince may not be stable. If you want to meet the regent of Genii kingdom, you don't need to be so deliberate. This time we are celebrating the new year in the palace, and the regent of Genii kingdom has agreed to take the prince with him. Did you actually agree? Fan Kinjao's brows furrowed even more tightly, but do you know why you agreed? Bailey Fengming shook his head. The regent of Genii kingdom never plays his cards according to common sense. Yuning suggested that he go to the palace for winter hunting. If the regent of Genii kingdom was actually encouraged by Yuning to leave, Bailey Fengming said, Yuning doesn't have such a big reputation. Fan Kinjao nodded. How could a man who could not even be controlled by the emperor be plotted by Yuning? No matter what, she had to be very energetic when going to the palace this time. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 380. Chapter 380, Things that can make people's wishes come true. The sky gradually darkened. Fan Kinjao followed Bailey Fengming as he walked downstairs. Bailey Fengming doesn't appear in the main city many times, so many people don't know his identity. It's just that his handsome face and natural noble temperament are too eye-catching, and soon all the eyes in the hall on the first floor are focused here. Just at this moment, several well-dressed middle-aged men walked in. Several people looked at the eyes of others, and their expressions immediately changed. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Almost instantly, the crowded hall fell into silence. Bailey Fengming did not let go of Fan Kinjao's hand. He walked up to a few men and smiled. Zhang Taking of Honglu Temple is a bachelor of Sun University. What a coincidence. Several ministers hurriedly bent down and said, I would like to pay my respects to His Highness the Crown Prince. Bailey Fengming nodded lightly. You guys are taking it easy, I'll take the first step. After saying that, he took Fan Kinjao's hand and walked out of the restaurant. Several ministers looked at the hands held by the two people and their eyes widened in shock. Since the imperial decree conferring marriage, His Highness the Crown Prince has acted as if nothing has happened. He has never even entered the Hua family's door. Therefore, it has been spread throughout the court that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince does not look down upon Princess Jingping at all. As a result, just when everyone was taking it for granted, the prince actually held the hand of Princess Jingping and walked through the city. At this time, not to mention the court, even the people in the main city were confused. What is going on? Does His Highness the Crown Prince not like Princess Jingping, or does he like Princess Jingping too much? Soon, the news that Princess Jingping and His Highness the Crown Prince were getting married became a topic of conversation among the people in the main city after dinner. While the people were still wondering about His Highness the Crown Prince's attitude towards this marriage, the princes who were busy with the wedding heard the news that the third prince intended to win over the Han family. No matter how hard the Han family gained a foothold in the imperial city, it would never be enough for the third prince to take such initiative. So there is no need to think too much about this kind of thing. The princes also understand the fishiness involved. Basically, the third prince wanted to use the Han family to win over the sixth prince, and then use this to communicate with the sixth prince's mother's family. Otherwise, the third prince would be full and had to curry favor with the sixth prince's father-in-law. What's the matter? One Pan family father-in-law is not enough, must good things come in pairs and be called two father-in-law? Originally, the princes who were secretly vying for power were already beginning to make moves. But after all, they haven't gotten married yet, so the princes are still restrained. As a result, a third prince emerged who took the lead, and the other princes no longer hid him. So that when Han Yao, who was completely unaware, went to court the next day, he was chased and intercepted by the princes. Han Yao certainly knew what the purpose of these princes was in wooing him. But suddenly faced with such a fierce offensive, Han Yao was still frightened. For a time, Han Yao became a celebrity in the court. Not only was he surrounded by officials from the princes of the war team when he went to court, but there were also princes hosting a banquet waiting for him in the next court. Han Yao, who was over 50 and half buried in the earth, could withstand such a torment. He took leave within 3 days. Had he not been waiting for his daughter's wedding, Han Yao would have gone back to Sichuan province long ago. It was Bailey Rongs who was sitting in Yuya Palace and heard that a prince took the initiative to visit Han Yao in the Han mansion, so he pushed the chessboard in front of him to the ground. The palace guests in the palace were so frightened that they all knelt on the ground and did not dare to speak. Concubine Yu, who was startled by the noise, couldn't help but frown. Look at what you look like now. Bailey Rong snorted coldly, what I am now is not thanks to my mother. Concubine Yu's face darkened, how can you talk to me like this? Bailey Rongs really couldn't bear it any longer. He got angry and even complained, I just can't understand what's wrong with Fan Kinjao and why he made his mother and concubine look down on her so much. If he had originally Urchin really has Fan Kinjao in his pocket, why would he bother to win over someone so much now? Fan Kinjao not only makes money, but also has superb medical skills. If Fan Kinjao were standing by his side now, his father would have been submissive to him. As for the Zhou family that he is eager to win over now, he will naturally take the initiative to get involved. Concubine Yu didn't expect that her son's first outburst would be for Fan Kinjao, so her face became even more ugly. After all, you still miss Fan Kinjao. After the wedding, the princes will not be the same as they are now. You are so content and self-sufficient. You don't think about your future, but you spend all your time thinking about something that was brought up by a fox. You are such a disappointment to me. If it weren't for the fear of disappointing my mother and concubine, I wouldn't be in this situation now. Bailey Rongs got a severe headache just thinking about the princes who tried their best to get close to Han Yao all day long. Not long after Miss Pan's second daughter was returned by the Han family last time, the princes in the palace knew about his intentions. Who would believe it if Fan Kinjao didn't do it? But now he can only watch Fan Kinjao helplessly, secretly helping the prince to seek power. How can Bailey Rongs not get angry? Concubine Yu looked at her son with a pale face, hating Fan Kinjao even more in her heart. When Yuning came in, she saw such an embarrassing scene. Concubine Yu was in a bad mood. Even when she looked at Yuning, she looked unkind and asked, why are you here? Yuning quickly explained, I heard that the court was not very peaceful, so I specially made something for His Highness to keep him safe. Bailey Rongs frowned and watched Yuning take out the sachet in her hand. The style is very ordinary, very different from the Qingnanzai style. Yuning didn't seem to see the disgust in Bailey Rongs' eyes, and took the initiative to go forward a few steps. Your Highness, you only need to wear the sachet on your waist, and your wishes will soon come true. Bailey Rongs was just wondering when he saw Yuning taking out another pill from her sleeve. The Third Highness has to take this antidote in advance to ward off the harm of the sachet. However, the Third Highness, please keep in mind that the sachet must be combined with the mountain tea to have the effect that the Third Highness wants. Bailey Rongs looked at Yuning silently for a while, and then swallowed the antidote with suspicion. Yuning smiled again and tied the sachet around Bailey Rongs' waist. In a few days, the wedding of the sixth prince will be held. I would like to wish His Highness the Third Prince a success. Bailey Rongs could tell that Yuning was asking him to attend the sixth prince's wedding. Although he still doesn't understand what Yuning means, Bailey Rongs knows that Yuning will never dare to harm him. Seeing that her son had calmed down, Imperial concubine Yu felt much better. She looked at Yuning and asked softly, "The Emperor has given you a blessing by letting you stay with the Crown Prince of Janai. You must make good use of it." Yuning nodded in agreement. "The Prince of Janai Kingdom has trusted me wholeheartedly, but the Regent of Janai Kingdom is too suspicious. Even though the Prince personally mentioned it to him several times, the Regent of Janai Kingdom has never seen me." Concubine Yu said, "There is no need to be so impatient. Since the Prince of Janai Kingdom has heard your promise to go to the palace to celebrate the new year, the Regent of Janai Kingdom will go with him. It will not be too late to act according to the opportunity." Yuning did not dare to disobey and nodded obediently. "Everything depends on concubine Yu." Before he could finish his words, a strong feeling of nausea came to his heart. Concubine Yu looked at Yuning and waved her hand, "Go and cultivate yourself. Now your body is very valuable." Yuning still behaved respectfully and obediently, "Yes." Just as she turned to leave, her dark eyes shone with disgust. End of this chapter.